So from highway upgrades and milestone markets to surprise Springbok cuts, streaming turf wars, and a rare peek back at South Africa's nuclear past. Today's show is all about who's funding what, who's watching whom, and who's getting left off the team sheets. My friends, this is Daily Bagel, the morning news show keeping you informed and entertained with the most important news out there. Let's get into it. And kicking us off with current affairs, I get it. Driving on South African highways can feel like you're playing Mario Kart on veteran mode, swerving around potholes, dodging cones, and those construction workers waving the red flags. But SANRAL says that help is on the way. They're planning on entering into a deal to borrow 7 billion rand from the BRICS Bank to upgrade 4 major freeways. So the total cost of these upgrades is reportedly 12.7 billion rand. And while this BRICS loan is a big step, it still needs the Reserve Bank and the legal approvals before the funds can be unlocked. And now this also comes just a year after the collapse of Gauteng's controversial e-toll system, which left SANRAL carrying the debt and which is also partly why a similar BRICS loan was rejected back in 2019. So now here's the thing. As we mentioned yesterday, South Africa has 59 toll plazas, all there to supposedly help maintain these key highways. But if you've driven those highways in recent years, we all know that maintenance isn't exactly a strong point. And now we're borrowing 7 billion rand to upgrade these highways that in many cases haven't been properly maintained. And I get it, this isn't a doomsday event, but it does raise a very basic question, which is, if these systems that we have aren't already working, aren't already efficient, what exactly are we building on here? And on to our quick fire mentions. The pilot strike at FlySafair has now grounded dozens of flights, with the salary talks still stalled. So amid all this chaos, FlySafair has begun operating select flights under this emergency agreement between the two airlines. And SABC is supposedly warning of a possible total blackout, with Centec threatening to switch off the transmitters over unpaid debts. Now, Parliament is reportedly dragging its feet over the matter, but honestly, if SABC went dark for a day or a week, would you actually notice? And on to our finance section. The JSE has just smashed through a historic milestone, breaching 100,000 points for the first time since its founding more than 130 years ago. And now look, that's not just a psychological marker, it's a reflection of a market that has rallied nearly 25% in a year, mostly led by the mining giants riding this wave of record gold and rising platinum prices. And with South Africa still seen globally as a commodity play, international fund managers have been piling in. But see, it's not just the metals driving momentum. Some analysts say that investors are also responding to political signals, especially the supposed relative stability of the coalition governments and hopes of this long-awaited economic reform. Now, financial stocks also held steady, with banks up more than 3% despite the global jitters. And now the JSE is thinking bigger. You see, with the Nasdaq and the New York Stock Exchange moving towards 24-hour trading, our own exchange is, and I quote, watching closely, exploring whether around-the-clock markets could attract more international capital and give local traders real-time access to global events. In short, for the JSE, the next big move isn't just upwards, it's forward. And next up, the Canal Plus takeover of MultiChoice has just cleared its biggest hurdle, receiving approval from South Africa's Competition Tribunal. You see, the 53 billion rand deal will see the French media giants absorb the DStv and Showmax parent company, with conditions that include a 28 billion rand local investment package, continued support for South African content, and this licensing carve-out to meet these foreign ownership limits. So this is honestly one of the biggest shakeups in African broadcasting, and it comes at a time when global streaming platforms like Netflix and Disney Plus may soon face their own regulatory push here in South Africa. You see, there's this new white paper that's proposing extending local content quotas for these giant platforms, essentially forcing them to either show more South African productions or contribute to this national content fund. So for streamers betting on South Africa, the rules are changing, and investing in local content is becoming part of the cost of doing business here. And on to our quick fire mentions. June's inflation ticked up to 3%, a 4-month high, but still within target. Now, economists say that the Reserve Bank has room to cut rates next week, as underlying pressures remain muted despite higher food, rent, and meat prices. And new labor law proposals could double retrenchment payouts and loosen firing for probation workers. Now, these reforms aim to reduce litigation and boost employment flexibility, but unions are warning that many workers are going to be stripped of protection. And on to our sports section. Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has named a trimmed 37-man squad for the Rugby Championship. And if you're scanning for the big names, you'll notice a few missing. Faf de Klerk, Vincent Chituka, Lekanya and Mpimpi have all been released to stand by. And look, we all know that Russia is generally 14 steps ahead of the game, but given how Faf and Chituka performed in recent tests against Italy and Georgia, it feels like a shock call. So in their place, Erasmus has backed some of the younger players who impressed last month, including props Bowen Fenter and Asanati, hooker Marnus van der Merwe, and utility back Ethan Hooker. 3 players from the Junior Box World Cup winning squad have also been invited to join the conditioning camp, a clear sign that Russia is investing early in future depth. But for all the talk about building a broader base, the selection may spark debate. The Box face Australia in just 3 weeks, and when experience like Faf's is left on ice, fans are right to wonder if Russia's rotation is the right one. And on to our quick-fire mentions. Banyana's WAFCON title defense is over after a 2-1 heartbreaking semi-final loss to Nigeria. You see a stoppage-time lob caught goalkeeper Dlamini off guard just minutes after Gabriela Salgado suffered a leg fracture. Mani Lipuk has officially joined Japan's Hanazono Kontetsu Liners, replacing Quade Cooper. Now this move enters Stormer's chapter and sees him link up with fellow South Africans Berger Odendaal and Reino Peters in Division 2. And the Proteas were humbled by New Zealand in a dead rubber T20 clash, losing by 7 wickets with 25 balls to spare. Now Reza Hendricks top scored with 41, but South Africa's 134 just wasn't enough. And as expected, before we continue, here is your bagel bite of the day. When was the Johannesburg Stock Exchange founded? Was it A, 1877, B, 1887, or C, 1897? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. And on to our wildcard section. This is an interesting story. In the 1980s, South Africa became the first and still only country in history to build its own nuclear bombs and then voluntarily destroy them all. So this all started under apartheid, driven by this paranoia that Soviet-backed forces were planning to storm the region and seize South Africa's gold and uranium. So, in total secrecy, the government built 6 fully operational gun-type nuclear bombs, each with the explosive power of Hiroshima, and they stashed them near Pretoria. A 7th one was half finished before the plans changed. So by 1989, apartheid was crumbling and the Soviet threat was gone. So President F.W. de Klerk reportedly gave the order: dismantle everything. The bombs were taken apart, the uranium recast, and the program shut down before Nelson Mandela walked free. So this is where it gets interesting. On paper, this was all about diplomacy and transparency, but for some people, including ANC insiders, they long suspected a deeper reason, that de Klerk didn't want nuclear bombs falling into the hands of the ANC government. Either way, to this day, South Africa remains the first and still only country to build nuclear weapons and then get rid of them. And as for that bagel bite, the answer is 1887. That's when the JSE first opened its doors, the same year that Sherlock Holmes first appeared in print, and just a few months after the Johannesburg Gold Rush began. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Also, I want to say thanks to all of you guys who reached out with advice on how to overcome this flu. Everything ranged from weird medication I've never heard to painkillers and vitamins, and someone even suggested onions on my feet, which can't knock it till you try it. Guys, hope you all have a great Thursday, and I'll catch you all tomorrow for the final Daily Bagel show of the week. It's going to be a good one. I'll catch you guys all then. Cheers.